Just wanted to give y'all some context about my last video with the Airbnb guest who tried to get me in trouble with the city of. So I own and operate an Airbnb. It's just a bedroom and a little living area inside of my home on the second and third floor. The second floor is the landing area where you walk in. You saw me with the laundry basket. That's the kitchenette. You go up a flight of stairs. That's the living room and bedroom. It's not an apartment. It's not a condo. It's not a separate entrance. You walk into my main entrance in my home. You go up the stairs. You have a keyless door that locks. You go through that door. That's your suite. My other door has a keyless lock in that same hallway that goes to my son's room and my ex's room. Okay, so when we have someone in residence, we do not fraternize in the hallway. The animals are not running around the house. When we have someone in residence, we are in our private rooms. We have walkie-talkies we communicate with throughout the house to let each other know, you need something from the kitchen, I'll bring it up. Is the guest in residence? Are they gone? Can you come down and take the cat to the litter box? Like things like that. I just bought this house around the corner from your guest suite. I'd like to book it for my friends who are visiting from Florida. Okay, no problem. Explain to her that, this is the way it's set up. This is the way it's laid out. No problem. Books it. Immediately, she transfers the guest who's staying here, who's coming in from out of town. She puts them on the chat. She includes them on the chat. And the guest and I, we never spoke. We never introduced. She was never like, hey, I'm really excited. I can't wait. What's the rules? Like, there was no communication with the guest. No problem. They come. I meet them at the front door. The husband gets out. He looks around. He's looking like, are we in Oz? Like, where are we? Mind you, I'm around the corner from their friend. But the area of my city where I live, you see a lot more of us. You know what I'm saying? You're still on the water. You're still by the marina. But you see more of us down here. Anyway, just to give you some context. So he gets out. He's looking around. I'm like, nice to meet you. Welcome. Come on in. Let me show you around. Let me show you how to get in. Blah, blah. And they're looking. The wife gets out. She comes around. She says, are you Monique? I said, yeah, I'm Monique. And just looking real weird. Just like, so they walk in, didn't say a word, not, oh, nice hydrangea. Oh, look at those peonies in bloom. Like, wow, your flowers are gorgeous. Nothing. Not one thing, which was weird. I mean, it's not like I'm fishing for compliments, but the first normal conversation that you have with someone when you're walking into their home is, oh, wow, nice location or something, right? That was red flag number one. That was just odd. You let me walk in front of you and not say a word the whole time. It was so uncomfortable. Walking up the stairs, bringing her up to the suite. This is your bathroom. This is your door, blah, blah, blah. So I hightailed it out of there. I showed them, I was like, okay, this is where you get in. Have a great time. Bye. They were here for 5 nights. And I was like, this is not sitting right with my spirit. I come downstairs. I tell my ex who helps me run the suite, I said, something's not, they're off, right? So long story short, I figured they traveled. Maybe they drove. It was a long drive, whatever. So anyway, I come in the house. An hour later, I get a phone call from my best friend next door. And he's like, listen, I brought you some rice and beans. And on my way out, I met your guests. And they were really weird. I said, what happened? He was like, yeah, she saw me come out the door. And she said, oh, are you staying here too? And he was like, oh, no, I live next door. I'm bringing her some food. And she was like, oh, you live next door? He said, yeah, I own the house next door. She said, you own the house next door? Well, good to know. And she walked out. So he called me and was like, this is what happened. Yeah, they're not going to stay. That was the first thing I said. They're not staying overnight. Never mind 5 nights. They'll probably not be here long. They didn't want to be here for whatever reason. At that point, I was not even thinking bias. I was thinking they were tired. They had a long trip. It wasn't personal. I'm back in my room. I closed the door. Time goes on, never heard back from them, not once. Around 11:30 at night, I hear the door open, the front door. My bedroom is off of the hallway, so I could hear and see everything. I have a ring cam and all of that. So I see them come in 11:30 and they go up the stairs. And, I was like shocked that they came back because I really thought they were going to be checking out that day. Like, I didn't think they were spending the night. Long story short, they go upstairs. The next morning, my ex calls me and says, I just ran into the guest. They're saying that they want to find another place to stay and that they want a refund. And I said, well, what happened? Any reason? And he said that they said it was just a little noisy. Okay. So I call her on the chat and I say, I talked to Matt. So what happened? How was your night? And she's like, yeah, it was just a little noisy. It was very lovely. However, it was just a little noisy. Now, that was the first time she said it was lovely. Out the whole time. Never had she said it was lovely. That was odd. And she said, it was just a little noisy. We're going to find some other place to stay. I was like, okay, no problem. But I would rather you deal with Airbnb because now I'm starting to get my spidey senses up. I'm like, but what was the real reason, right? What was the real reason? And immediately she switched it back over to the person who booked it on the chat. So now the person on the chat who booked it, who paid for it most likely, was like, I want my money back, and if you don't give me my money back, I'm going to give you a very honest review. At which point I said, do me a favor and give me a very honest review. As a matter of fact, give me the most honest review because all the other reviews have been 5 stars. So I want a really honest review. I don't know what review you're concocting. So she said, no problem, bet. I get a phone call from Airbnb. That's the whole process. So now Airbnb gets involved. They want to know, is there any way we can work with them? They didn't see any signs of bigotry or bias or racism because they weren't there. They didn't feel it. Sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's not the words, it's the what you do. My neighbor has a Cybertruck, and she came back in the Cybertruck to take noise levels outside of my house by the bridge. She stood right by the bridge. She wasn't on the 3rd floor where the bedroom is. She wasn't up there at 11:30 at night taking sounds levels. She was here at 11:30 in the morning upon checkout on a Tuesday afternoon. Like, make it make sense. You trying to concoct some stuff now, okay? So now, fast forward about a week and a half later, we get a certified letter from the compliance officer in our city saying that we're going to have to come to court to prove that we're not illegally operating a guest house. But this person is reaching and is now wasting taxpayer dollars. You can't make it up. You cannot illegally operate and run a business. You have to be licensed. You have to have registration numbers, and you have to pay taxes, of which we do all 3. So, like I said in the video, nice try though. Listen, not only was she a weirdo, the guest after her checked in and confirmed with me. He said, I read that review. It was definitely racism and bias, bigotry, whatever you want to call it. But she did not get to see my profile photo. So the fact that someone else booked it for her let me know that she did not know that I was someone of color, and she did not appreciate that. They didn't like that. So you want me to give you a refund for what? Refund for why? What's for me is for me. What God has for me has for me. And what He has covered for me and what He has promised to cover for me, I'm not worried about the summons. But stay tuned, y'all. I will give you an update after the court date. The court date is July 28th. Be very vigilant about your bias and how you let it show. Because in business, it has no room for that. It has no room. We have no room for that. This is a business. You're not taking money out of my home and taking money out of my family pocket because of your bias. That's what this is about. Let's be clear, okay? You didn't get a hair in the bed. There wasn't bed bugs. You didn't get sheets that hadn't been laundered. Let's be clear. This is not about getting a refund for any reason other than you didn't want to be in someone whose house was black in the neighborhood next to the black people.